All right, some of you might disagree with this opening statement, but the Hobbit movies were pretty bad. I mean, when you compare them with Peter Jackson's earlier work, particularly with Lord of the Rings.
And The Frighteners.
And Dead Alive. They just don't compare to each other. And now we have maybe some insight into exactly why, and possibly the most revealing behind-the-scenes video I've ever seen. Let's take a look.
From then on, you're playing this huge chasing game because Peter is shooting. He's doing his 21-hour days, getting 3 hours sleep and doing another 21-hour day with the editing and everything else that's going on, and you don't ever get that prep time.
I spent so much of The Hobbit feeling like I was not on top of it, with the fact that I hadn't much prep and I was making it up as I went along. And even from a script point of view, Philippa and Fran and I hadn't really got the entire scripts written all the way through to our satisfaction. So that was a very high pressure situation.
Peter Jackson himself is quoted with saying, "I didn't know what the hell I was doing," in the special features of this video, which is so honest and heartbreaking.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the reason why we saw the Battle of Five Armies, made into its own separate movie wasn't that there was too much information, because if you look at the book, there wasn't. It was because Peter Jackson didn't know what to do yet, and he was basically buying himself a little bit more time, which is possibly the worst way to make a movie, to jump in without having a storyboard or a script that you're happy with.
And there's a lot of details behind this that, like, originally we were supposed to get this with Guillermo del Toro, and he did a lot of the work for when it was originally supposed to be 2 films, and then he jumped out for some reason, and Peter Jackson, I had always heard, hopped in to save the movie, to make sure that The Hobbit happened. I kind of wish we had seen Guillermo del Toro's The Hobbit 2 movie. And also, like, I understand Peter Jackson wanting to hop in and save this movie, but if he wasn't ready for it, and he wasn't on top for it, why do it?
Well, I mean, he's not a bad filmmaker.
No.
He's very dedicated. And yet these movies turned out as they did. I mean, if you have to look at Lord of the Rings. He had 3.5 years of pre-production before that happened, and it turned out very well acclaimed, beloved movies. For this one, I think it was about 2 months.
Yeah.
He had to prepare all this, which is not enough time. And you have...
and the budget for all 3 of these movies was double what he had for all 3 of the previous movies. So it kind of seemed like he got to this point where, like, when he couldn't solve a problem, he just threw money at it. Just threw money at it, which is never a solution, especially in a creative project.
Well, this gets to the point where they were shooting the Battle of Five Armies with no vision.
Yes.
They said they were just basically swinging the green screen swords at each other in front of a green screen, and nobody really knew what was going on. Peter had to say, "No, we're stopping this. We're halting this after 2 days," and then take some time off to try and figure it out. You can argue how competently that was done or not. He's also quoted as saying that he told the crew to take a long lunch while he just sat there and felt uncertain and tried to figure out how he could possibly make this work in what couldn't have been more than 2 hours.
No, it just, it also goes to the same aspect that, like, no one ever sets out to make a bad movie. No director does, but...
Except me, Tommy Wiseau. I did it on purpose. It's a very light comedy and not a terrible drama.
But, yeah, very true. But, I almost don't know, like, if you felt this way, why reveal it?
Why not?
Did he just need... But
It also seems like he's admitting these movies are not what I wanted at all.
That's true. That's very true. But also, it's one of those things where, like, okay, corporations pay you $1 gazillion to make this $1 gazillion movie.
Sure.
If a year later you're going to be like, man, that movie, woo! Why would they? If I'm a big corporate guy, why would I ever hire you again?
Because he's Peter fucking Jackson. He's not some green director.
We've seen George Lucas fall. We've seen Steven Spielberg fall. We've seen many other directors fall. No one is unbreakable.
That's true. But what also seems, maybe, this is in retaliation almost, because he was chasing a studio deadline. If he had been given the time he wanted, he could have created the art he wanted. Perhaps this is more of saying, this is not my art. This is not what I set out to create. and now that whatever NDA or whatever contract is worn off, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want because I'm Peter Jackson.
It sounds like he was actually, to be honest with you, from the quotes and that stuff like that, it really sounds like the 3 hours a night and the whole process just wore him out. And I kind of feel like this is him finally recovered. Like he's finally back to where he was, and he's just like, oh boy.
It's like waking up from a daze.
You know,
let's say you're studying all night for a project, or you're working day and night to get something done to meet a deadline. Do you have coherent thoughts? Are you making the right decisions? Are you being rational? A lot of the time the answer is no. And then you can look at it in retrospect, like, what was that crazy time in my life?
And I will say that this at least gives us an explanation from how we went from the quality of The Lord of the Rings to just the disappointment of The Hobbit. You know, it might also be nice if we heard the same thing from George Lucas.
You will never hear that. Besides,
no.
What was it? It's like a bad breakup. I'm done with it. It's over.
Yeah, George Lucas is done. Yeah.
That's what I hear a lot.
As much as we love movies, and people love movies, and we personify movies, and we love to think that that movie is ours. But you know what? That movie is Disney's or Warner Brothers or Universal's. They own that movie, and as much as you are a director, and you were like, oh, this movie is mine, and blah, 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 and I can do this. It is a product of a business. And I love it. It's art. But at the bottom line, that's what it is.
If I choose to look at this as a protest from Peter Jackson for art, I am so on board with this revealing and heartbreaking behind the scenes. You can watch the rest of that video on YouTube. We'll include a link below. I want to thank Jason Inman for returning to Nerd Alert this week.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks so much, buddy. Where can everybody find you? What are you working on? Let's do it.
You can find me on Twitter at Jawin, Jawiin, youtube.com/Jawin, where I have a bunch of stuff, including my web series, The Red Shirt Diaries, in season 2. I also do a podcast called Geek History Lesson that's on iTunes, where we educate you about characters of pop cultures, where we talked about Jessica Jones.
I did see that one.
The
video, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All types of stuff like that. So you can find me everywhere in that. And on DC All Access, the DC Comics YouTube show, every weekday.
Awesome.
It's a lot.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. And thank you, Jason.
Thank you.